In the name of God, our Creator, our Redeemer, and our Sustainer. Amen. Please be seated. The children go into the church hall, into Children's Church. Thank you at the back with Rocky and family. The children would like to go to Children's Church. School-aged children, please wear a mask. And the younger ones at their parents' discretion. Thank you. For several thousand years, we humans have left our mark on the earth. We have explored, we have tilled, we have studied it, piecing together a wealth of knowledge about the world in which we live. Nothing seemed to be beyond our bounds when we put our minds to it. Scientific breakthroughs never ceased to astound us and took place with gathering momentum. We had the privilege of coexisting with millions of species, with thousands of forms of life that had their home in different regions of the planet. Amazing ecosystems that reflected worlds in which time seemed to have stopped. Gardens of Eden, showing us the drama and the beauty of the natural, God-given glory of nature. But we are now acutely aware that there are limits. Selfish and rash leaps of progress and technology have led to dangerous, destructive, and irreversible changes to our common home. Scientists now tell us an estimate of between 150 and 200 species of plant, insect, birds and mammals disappear, become extinct from our planet every single day because of human activity. The equivalent of one garbage truck full of plastic enters the ocean every minute of every day. That was a 2016 figure. It was expected to increase 4 times by 2020. The idea of conquering and exploring nature has led to huge ecological damage to our Earth. And scientists tell us we are now living in an age of mass extinction. Today's psalm sings of the web of life. Humankind has not woven the web of life. God wove the web of life. Humans, you and me, we're one thread in it. And we're now beginning to see that what we've done to the web, we're doing to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect through God, our Creator and Sustainer. For the people of ancient times, the sea was always a frightening, terrifying power. They envisaged the world as a flat plate, resting on waters below and waters above. The waters above were blocked by the vault of the skies. And if God should ever cease to hold back those waters, people felt that the waters would rush together and engulf creation. Which is, of course, in the way of thinking, what happened at the time of Noah. God alone was the one who could control the might of the seas. And we heard in today's psalm, but also Psalm 89 and 107, sailors crying out to God in distress and the storm subsiding. It's no wonder that the disciples ask each other at the end of our gospel reading, "Who then is this, that he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him?" The question for us is, what does this gospel reading say to us today? I want to, for a few minutes this morning, take just one picture from today's gospel reading and just explore it for a moment or two. And the picture is of Jesus asleep in the boat as the storm brewed. It's the only time we hear of Jesus asleep while others are awake. This one time as the disciples row the boat across the Sea of Galilee in a storm. And I wonder how that picture, the picture of Jesus asleep during a storm, what does that do? How does that sit with you? What questions arise in your mind? Why is Jesus asleep? How could Jesus sleep in a boat in a thunderstorm when even experienced fishermen were fearing for their lives? And in the storms our world is facing, or the storms you and I might be facing in our lives, do we sometimes have the feeling that Jesus is asleep on the bottom of the boat while we are perishing? When we look at the laws and the commandments of God, one of the commandments that comes up most often is the command to rest on the seventh day. 1 day in 7, the Sabbath, no work. None at all, only rest. I am convinced that to re-find our place within the web of life, we need most urgently to regain a vision of Sabbath rest. Our world today needs not more technology, not more busyness. Rather, it needs less, much less. It occurs to me that if each person in the West at least were to do half of what we currently do, working, shopping, vacationing, eating, watching TV, using the internet, if we cut it all by 50%, then many of the world's problems would be solved overnight. What is going to slow us down? Where is your faith? Jesus asks. If the pace and scale of human activity is the problem in our world and in our lives, do we have enough faith in God to slow down? As you are perhaps aware, we're hoping this summer to build a prayer labyrinth in the church garden here on this side of the church. To walk a labyrinth prayerfully helps us to slow down. It helps us to become more reflective in the way we live our lives. It can help us to lay our decisions in life before God and to know that God is with us at every turn and in the storms of life. The bad news, it's going to cost 22,000 euros. The good news is that we're halfway there, but we still need to raise 10,000 euros, and that sounds like a lot of money. But if 100 people were to give 10 euros a month for a year, then we'd have enough. Only we'd like you to give your 100 euros, your 10 euros bunched up, so we could do it a bit more quickly, because we'd like to do it this summer. But what I'd like to do this morning is to share with you a way of prayer, one of the simplest and one of the most useful ways of praying, because I think also this would help us to slow down. Former Bishop of Oxford, John Pritchard, calls it prayer as sunbathing. And he writes, the essential thing about sunbathing is that you just go and lie in the sun. You don't need to learn a technique. You can't do anything to increase the power of the sun to get a better suntan. You don't have to believe a lot of scientific facts about the sun before you can benefit from it. You just have to go outside and lie in the sun. The sun will do the rest. Prayer, he says, is like that. You don't have to have a theology degree to pray. You can't turn up the power of God's love to make you feel even warmer. You don't even have to know a lot about God before you pray. You just have to go to the right place and stay there. Like Woody Allen's famous line, 80% of life is just turning up. Just turn up and God will do the rest. Our biggest problem, though, of course, is turning up and staying there. We're past masters at finding excuses for not coming back to God in prayer. Oh, we're so busy. And we need, of course, to do our work. And then there's the family to look after. And anyway, don't we find God in all things? But if we're going to get a suntan, you've got to lie in the sun. We spend so much time running around, organizing our lives, tidying up, working, planning, ensuring against storms, that the idea of going out and lying in the sun strikes us as ridiculously self-indulgent. But the result is that our lives and our world are increasingly chaotic and overcomplicated. The first and almost the only thing we have to do then is to slow down and go outside. Okay, you need, when you're lying in the sun, you need a little preparation, a towel and some sun cream. That's all. When you go to prayer, you might decide to take a candle or a Bible or an icon. But basically, you're just going to open yourself to the source of light, God, and let God do the rest. Monica Furlong, the Roman Catholic feminist theologian, calls it waste of time prayer. She gets up earlier than she would choose to every morning and sits on her bed clutching a cup of steaming coffee and wastes time with God. That's how she calls it. And what she's doing is letting God work on changing her, melting her heart, warming her soul to love, to forgive, to be forgiven, to be open to others, to slow her down. She writes that she often doesn't really understand what's going on, but she's made the observation that when she's made time for God in the morning, God is present in her day. Slowing down is, I think, the major problem in our society. We live under the tyranny of speed. We pack more and more into the same number of hours that our ancestors had, but there's no evidence that it's making us any happier. There's a deep need for our society to be detoxified from its busyness. Even pensioners boast to one another at how busy they are. We need to learn the secret that God doesn't rush. God walks at 3 miles an hour, a humane speed, the speed of love, the speed of the Spirit. No one, of course, would say that a Beethoven symphony, if it was played 25% faster, we would squeeze another piece into the concert. It has its own proper speed. And of course, this is nothing new. St. Augustine put it neatly when he said, "O God, you have made us for yourself, and our souls are restless until they find their rest in you." Let's return to the ancient art of sunbathing in the Spirit. If we keep coming back to God, God will keep coming back to us. A door will open in heaven. Let's keep some silence together.